What's up, folks? This is Tony Brewer. You're listening to or watching, as the case may be, Cogitations. Cogitations is the podcast where we think about things, we contemplate them, we turn them over in our minds, and then we discuss them. Daniel chapter 7, verse 28, Daniel writes, "Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart, and we're not going to keep the matter in our heart. We're going to talk about it. Today's Free for All Friday. I've got a little bit of an introductory thing to discuss as we start, but put your comments, questions, observations, all that good stuff in the comment section, and we will quickly get to the comment section. I just like giving Restream a little bit of time to build an audience and a little bit of time for the questions to start rolling in. I say rolling in. Sometimes we don't get but one or two questions, but they're typically questions that we can expand on and really dissect. Good morning, everybody. Scott Beck, good morning. Happy Friday to all. John Exum, good morning. Terry Crooks, good morning. How can Christians be good stewards financially? How can we live like no one else so later we can give like no one else? That's actually a quote from Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's an interesting character, John. Um, he a lot of folks, Dave Ramsey gets a bad rap from a lot of people who are good with numbers. And they'll talk about Dave Ramsey's get out of debt solution, which is the snowball method. And his advice is the first thing you do is you save up $1,000 for a emergency fund. Then you start paying off all of your debt, starting with the smallest debt first. Which people say, well, $1,000 emergency fund's stupid. It's been $1,000 for 30 years. Don't you know inflation? And Dave Ramsey always says it's not about math, it's about psychology. $1,000 back in the 1990s, 30 years ago, was not enough of an emergency fund, just like $1,000 is not enough of an emergency fund in 2024. It's psychological. Dave Ramsey says what we were finding is we had people who were trying to go through this program, and they were eating beans and rice and beans, and they were stretched, they were stressed. They weren't seeing the inside of a restaurant unless they were washing dishes or waiting tables. And then the brakes go out, and it's going to be a $500 fix, and they didn't have the money. They weren't liquid enough to be able to go fix their car and put brakes on their car. So they would go swipe a credit card and they'd get right back in the same position they were in. And he said, so what we found is if we started having people keep $1,000, at least something like small, like brakes, a set of tires. And before you come at me, I've put big tires on a 4-wheel drive truck for less than $200 because I was frugal and I put used tires, all that good stuff. Now that was back in 10, 15 years ago, so I'm sure it would be, I bet you for $500 in this economy, I could go out and get a really, really, really good set of tires. I mean, a really good set. That's $100 a piece. I could almost get a brand new set of tires for $100 a piece for like a Honda CRV or something. But anyway, so you had to have that to kind of ease them a little bit. And then the people who are good at math, who are good at finances, say, well, that's the stupidest advice in the world, is to tell people to pay off their lowest bill first, their lowest credit bill first. And Dave makes the same point. It's not about mathematics, it's about psychology. Yes, credit is a tool. Yes, you can build a lot of wealth if you know how to use the system. The problem is most people don't know how to use the system, and most people aren't disciplined enough with credit to be able to use credit to build wealth the way really, really ultra wealthy people do. And so he goes back to the 40-hour-a-week millionaire. So he says, live your life like this. Be 100% debt-free. Pay off your smallest bill first. and then snowball that amount of money into your next smallest bill up until you pay off everything but your house. And once you pay off your house, you start saving up a 3 to 6 month emergency fund that is 3 to 6 months of your household income. And once you do that, you pay off your house. And while you're paying off your house, you put 15 to 20% in a Roth IRA or not a money market, but a Roth IRA, some kind of mutual fund that draws heavily on the S&P 500 or something like that, that you get a good return on. And you just coast along like that, putting every money you can into that fund. And eventually, because you have lived like no one around you was living, once you get through this valley and you're up on the peak again, you can live like no one else. And Dave Ramsey says, give like no one else. Step 7 of the baby steps is give. You're free to do it. And a lot of people think Dave Ramsey is so frugal and miserly, but I say a lot of people, that's a generalized statement. I have talked to people that their perception of Dave Ramsey is, well, his financial advice is just don't spend money. That's not true. I was listening to his show and a fella called in and said, listen, I'm 35, this, that, and the other. And then boom, he said, I've got $1.8 million. When can I buy a truck? I want to buy a truck. When do I get to enjoy some of this that I've built up? So Dave says, well, what kind of money are you looking at spending on a truck? And he was talking about a pretty nice truck, like, a Ford Raptor or a Z71 or the Toyota, the big boy Toyota. Oh, is it something like that? So, I mean, he's in this market, he's looking at close to $100,000. So Dave Ramsey said, okay, so you're 35, you zero debt, and you're worth $1.8 million. If you took $100,000 and set it on fire and burned it to ash, you'd be 1.6 million. I mean, you'd be, I don't do math evidently. You'd be 1.7 million. What's really the difference to your life if you're 1.8 million or 1.7 million net worth? Go buy your truck. Now, if you're going to buy an $800,000 vehicle, well, that's getting up there to 50% of your next net worth or close to it. And well, we need to talk about that. Buying a $100,000 truck when your net worth is $500,000 is stupid. Buying a $100,000 truck when your net worth is $1.8 million, who cares? You earned it. Anyway, so yeah, I like Dave Ramsey. He's pretty interesting. The way Christians can be good stewards of their money is just don't spend their money on anything ungodly. Be frugal. That passage of scripture in Proverbs, oh man, is it Proverbs 26? Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And the very next verse talks about borrowing and lending, that the borrower is slave to the lender. A wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Folks, I haven't been wise in that. Hopefully we got some things going on behind the scenes that will help us leave an inheritance to at least my children, hopefully my children's children. But that's the thing. I mean, you just don't be like Hezekiah. Don't look around and say, well, I'm fine. At least the hard times won't come in my day. At least they'll come to somebody else. That's how just take good care of what you got. All right. Good stuff, man. All right. Good morning from Romania. Yeah, John Exum, the 7 baby steps. Save $1,000, pay off all your debt except your house, save 3 to 6 months, invest 15% of your household income, save for your children's college fund, pay off your home early, build wealth, and give. Why Do we have one standard of doing foreign mission work and another standard for doing missions at home because of virtue signaling? Because of virtue signaling. There will be a little old congregation, God bless their hearts. There's 15 or 20 of them meeting. They don't do anything in the community. They don't do anything other than just come together and sing, pray, preach, partake of the Lord's Supper, and give as they've been prospered. And they come back Wednesday night for an hour, and they don't really do anything except live morally upstanding lives and go to the building and give their alms and stuff like that. No evangelism, no nothing. That's why they're 20, 25 members, where 20 years ago they were 125 members. But they're so proud because they're saying, look at all the good work we're doing. And they're sending money overseas. They're paying enough to keep the lights on in the building. They don't have an evangelist located there because, that's just that we don't need that. It's just 25 of us and the men take turns anyway. And they send all this money to these missionaries, and the missionaries send them back pictures and letters, and they put it on their bulletins, and every Sunday they stand around, or every month at the men's business meeting, there's the 3 or 4 or 5 men that are there. They look at their business report, and they look at the pictures and the bulletin boards. They look at how much we're doing for God. If we do mission work on our own soil, the rooster, as it were, has come home to roost. A missionary can't get away on domestic soil with what they can get away with overseas. I'm telling you, there's a whole lot of these missionaries that are fleecing the flock. They're grifters, they're shysters. They want to go into a country with a median annual income of about $10,000 US, and they want to be over there for 5 years making $60,000 or $70,000 US. You want a good way to alienate yourself from the people you've gone to serve? Live at a financial level 5 or 10 times above theirs. Some of those missionaries, those long-term missionaries overseas in third world countries, they're living as much as 100 times higher financially than the people they're trying to serve. Do missionary work like the first century did it. Go somewhere or send somebody with enough money, seed money, to have a good start and go back and check on them every year and leave them alone. They're a fully functioning autonomous congregation. Your congregation don't oversee that congregation. You might oversee the money if a group of people have gotten together to support this missionary. You might oversee the money, but that's all you do. You don't have any say in anything. Your only leverage in order to impose your will on this autonomous congregation is money. If the missionary that is involved in that work, if he starts preaching false doctrine, you have to withhold the money. If he does something you don't like, you withhold the money. But you don't go and pull strings in that congregation. You don't oversee the congregation. You're just overseeing the money. And it takes a lot of money to start a mission work. But the problem is, I don't know. I'm gonna hush up on that. But why do we have one standard for doing foreign mission work and another standard for doing missions at home? Because folks don't want to do missions at home. Folks don't want to do missions at home. And if somebody does missions at home, it's such a oddity, they don't know what to expect. They don't know what to expect. All right. The borrower is slave to the lender. Ted, I wish I had a better answer. I really do. Good morning, Sarah Rose. Hello, Sheila Cole. Should Christians share conspiracy theories such as government. Well, the government, I've seen that. You understand that's been going on since I was a child. That they can seed the clouds, and they like Dubai. Dubai is really messed up. The government controls the weather in Dubai. Like, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's actual truth. Whenever I was very, very young, it was a fairly common thing for farmers during dry years that crop dusters would double, I think, at least I think it was crop dusters. I was very small. I just remember it was really cool to watch the airplanes. And the adult's explanation is the airplanes are going to go up in the atmosphere and they're going to seed the clouds and make it rain. Now, here, John, I'm glad you said that. So they can seed the clouds, but not make hurricanes. Do you think all this cloud seeding and stuff like that doesn't have any effect more largely on the weather? Like, think about that. I mean, we understand just from science that think about with light, with photons going through a small slit. If you observe the photons going through a small slit, they behave differently than if they're unobserved. And we've proved this. So if that happens with light, think about the atmosphere. Think about baking a cake. Think about how much difference a pinch of salt makes in an entire recipe for cake. Hold on just a second. Something was tapping. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that there's some evil cabal on top of a mountain with some kind of ray gun that shoots the atmosphere and makes a hurricane. But this was talked about whenever I was younger, with all of the rockets and stuff going through the atmosphere and such. Like, that's a disturbance. So yeah, I'm not. I mean, if somebody's saying, yeah, the government has some kind of means of acutely controlling the weather to the point where they can make a hurricane, well, that person is stupid. He's empty-headed. He's too naive to be let out into public. But again, I can see where it wouldn't be that hard to actually affect the weather acutely enough to make a hurricane. I mean, we know the conditions in which they're formed: barometric pressure, high pressure, low pressure, all this, that, and the other. I don't think it'd be very hard to make one. I can't remember the comedian's name. Oh, it bothers me. He really pushed the envelope. Anyway, he said, you do not need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. You do not need a formal conspiracy where interests converge. That's like with the attempted Trump assassination. No, I don't think anybody in the government ordered a hit on a presidential candidate for the United States. But interest converged to the point where there was a medley of errors to the point where Trump had an attempt on his life. And when you look at all of that evidence, one could conclude, well, they did this on purpose. Even if nobody sat down and wrote an order out. there was enough people that their interests converged and they all slacked off just enough to allow that to happen. You don't have to have a formal conspiracy theory or a formal conspiracy when interests converge. Um, all right. I'm so glad I have a memory. I remember this being talked about openly by the government in the 60s. So I don't think, absolutely. And that's the thing. This new generation, okay, lo and behold, let me tell you what I was introduced to back in the 80s. The climate is getting warmer in Tennessee to the point that in not too many years, this is from back in the 80s, and they were giving these lectures and stuff at the University of Tennessee at Martin, their ag department. They were having these consortiums or whatever. Is that what it would be called? A consortium? Anyway, a council. And they were talking about this. They were educating the farmers. It's like you're going to have to learn how to grow crops in weather like southern Florida, like in hot weather. And lo and behold, every year they keep going. Every year it would get a little bit hotter and a little bit hotter. And now the climate of Tennessee is like Florida was back in the 80s, 40, almost 50 years ago. Why do I say that? The reason that they gave for the fluctuation in the temperature, and I love listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about this, the rotation on the Earth also wobbles on its axis, and it wobbles at a predictable rate of speed, at a consistent rate of speed, to the point where the astrophysicist mathematically can predict the climate fluctuation. That's all climate change is, folks. Yes, I'm sure man has influenced it some, but that's all climate change is. Anyway, and again, this was common knowledge pretty much back in the 80s because I was a little kid and I understood it. Tony, have you ever had to perform a funeral for someone who was not saved? No. No, I haven't. No, I was really thinking hard. No. Um, I performed. I guess I officiated. The word performed. Now that I said it out loud. Anyway, I officiated a sermon for a person who would be considered safe. He had Down syndrome and he also had some mental deficiencies, and he was safe. Ted Knight, I guarantee you Ted Knight has. And I'm going to redirect your comment. I feel for preachers who try to be nice, but can't comfort the family by telling them their loved one is in heaven. Yeah, it's in fact, Aaron Dotson was talking to me about this not too long ago. Similar situation. He wasn't officiating a funeral for someone who wasn't a Christian, but he was officiating a funeral for someone he did not know. And if a person were so inclined, they could have raised doubts. So I remember what Garland Elkins said about Curtis Cates. Inasmuch as we can know on this side of eternity, Curtis is in paradise. If you ever preach a sermon for someone and it's questionable, I say just do that. I'm not saying you need to preach them into heaven, but again, you also don't need to preach anybody into hell either. Now, I love preaching a sermon. I preached a sermon for a funeral I preached a funeral sermon for a man that died less than 2 days after we baptized him. I preached that one pretty hard. I had a room full of everybody in the community in Bay, Arkansas, and a whole lot of members of the charismatic denominations and stuff like that. And I preached a hole in the ground. That's several members of the Bay Church come up and said, "You preached a really good sermon." I was bound and determined. Everybody in that room was going to hear the gospel in its true form at least once. And it stirred them up, boy. But I didn't care. Maybe I should have, but if they were bound and determined to go to hell, I was going to make them go in spite of hearing the truth one time. All right. Let's see. You have no idea what they can do. They've had over 60 years to improve what they're doing, weather-wise and otherwise. Oh, yeah, that's the thing. Any technological advancement that came out today would not surprise me. It would not surprise me. I've been studying this space for too long. You understand that the technological advancements that we live with on a day-to-day basis that we take for granted are multiplied decades old. We have no clue what is used in the governmental sector. We have no clue what is used in the private sector in the upper elite section of security. No clue whatsoever. NOAA confirms that there are no weather modifications activities that could have resulted in Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton. They also confirmed that you got to take 2 years to flatten the curve. They confirm that you need to take this vaccine. They confirm that you have 6 feet to keep from getting a disease that has a 99.975% survival rate. Anyway, hey, Missy Malone, I think we're all doing well. Hey, Alabama, they wanted to make it rain in places like Africa where corn we grow in the States doesn't grow without a few inches of rain a month. Dumb idea. Exactly. Learn how to plant the crops that your soil can grow. Learn how to cultivate the crops your soil can grow, or learn cultivation processes. Talk about mission work. The Manna Project, I'm pretty sure, keeps doing this. Or it's still doing this. Gage Coldwater is his name. Go look him up, the Manna Project. Talk to him, see if his mission model isn't this. He goes into a place where there's no church, there's no school. He plants a church, starts a school, trains people locally to run the school, oversee the school. They'll bring in, like if they go to, I'm going to make up some names. Well, not making up names. I'm making up places. So he'll go to Tanzania, but he's already been to Djibouti. And so he'll go to Djibouti and take 3 or 4 men that are capable and put them over here where at least it's local to the area. Now, Djibouti and Tanzania may be as far apart as you can get from one another and still be on the continent of Africa. But understand what I'm trying to say. He doesn't go and make a facsimile of a Western church from the United States of America. He goes and preaches the truth and plants a church, and that church is a reflection and an outgrowth of the community in which it was planted. And 2 years is all they get money from the states. But he teaches them how to be self-supporting. He teaches them how to grow crops. He teaches them how to organize the school, how to manage the business. He teaches them how to not need an unbiblical cord of money flowing from the womb of the United States into the body of that church. And I said unbiblical on purpose, because I don't think the long-term support missionary model is scriptural. And what I mean to say by that is Like, for instance, you've got, like me up here in Canada, 2024, we're done. I'm not asking for support from anybody after 2024. That stage of development is over. The church here is around 30 members strong. We've been through some ups and downs. We've had some hitches in our giddy up. We've had to iron some stuff out. Now we're through with the growing pains. We're about 30 members. That's a good-sized congregation for this area. It's a good-sized congregation for the work we've been doing. And probably critical mass is about 50 members. And if we grow much beyond 50, we're just going to go down the road and plant another congregation. Not getting support from the states. You feel me? Too often with this missionary work, we make welfare programs, long-term welfare programs. And I would not, I don't know, I'm going to be done there. If you mess with one thing, you mess with another. You don't always get the outcome you thought you would get. Yes, that's the thing. It's like the cake recipe. Think about how a little pinch of salt affects a cake recipe. That's it. I'm 68 years old and everyone knew everyone. Everyone knew every time NASA launched anything into orbit, we saw lots of rain for several days, beginning the day after the launch. And it wasn't just rain. It was severe weather. Severe weather. And I know, like, it could have been, some of it could have been correlation and not causation. But look, man, I'm not saying look, man, to you, but I'm saying, look, enough correlation. You've got to start taking it a little bit more seriously than simple coincidence. JFK much? Man, that JFK, that's a terrible thing. Had a history teacher in high school, Tom Rice. I wish I knew. I loved his class. I'd go back and listen to his classes. But anyway, he kept doing this ding, 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 blue light special, 10 points, you miss it, you lose it. So we were divided up into history of trivia, and we would have history trivia every once in a while. The prize would be a few bonus points at the end of the year. All right. John, I want to deal with that in a moment. I think you're going farther than you intend to go there because of your passion. But anyway, Mr. Rice was a JFK history buff. He knew all about it. He loved it, and I loved talking to him about it. And then it blew my mind. Like, it's just, you understand, it's just understood as the truth now that the CIA assassinated John F. Kennedy. And they did it right after he promised to take down the Fed. Go figure. Not the same things. Not that some, hold on a minute, I can't read. Not that some things aren't out there, but conspiracy theorists tend to notice patterns over time. That term has long been used to make people seem crazy when they're just paying attention. That's my problem with this. If I say something like, look, ever since I was a little bitty boy, paying attention to the spaceships going up in the atmosphere, I noticed that every few days, it was just understood. We all knew we're going to get bad weather. The government is screwing up the weather. If I said that, a way to gaslight me into thinking that I'm crazy and trying to doubt the memories that I hold in my head is not dealing with why I said that. What data are you sampling to come to that statement, that conclusion? Instead, you say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. The government can't control the weather. I mean, yeah, the government can control the weather. Now let's talk about to what extent. Let's talk. Maybe they're not doing it on purpose. But if they're doing something that inadvertently affects the weather, then the statement the government is screwing with the weather is just as true as if the government was doing it on purpose. North Carolina, yep. Man, it's such a I can't even talk about that. I'm not talking about the cloud seeding. I'm referring to the ones about that it was to the point that they can make hurricanes do what they want, etc. Yeah, so I'm sure that you can see a lot of that out there where people take it to the point of absurdity. But the problem is when you deny it all as a conspiracy theory, you actually deny yourself understanding the truth of reality. Not you personally, I'm just saying people. We have no idea what they can do, John. It wouldn't be the first time they messed with things they shouldn't have. You got that right. Job 37:6. I think I know what that is. I don't want to go with my trusty rusty e-sword. John, I think 37. For he saith to the snow, Be thou on the earth, likewise to the small rain and to the great rain of his strength. He sealeth up the hand of every man that all men may know his work. Then the beasts go into the dens and remain in their places out of the south. John, I think you're over applying that. You're making that scripture say more than that intends. Let me tell you why. Hold on a second. Job horse. Right here. Let's go to Job 39. I made this point in class with Dan Cates. We had a good conversation about it and don't know exactly what we came to, but it's typically taught that all of these things that God is telling Job is something so far beyond Job and so far beyond mankind. But the problem is, I don't think we can take it in a blanket statement. I think some of this stuff has to be general. And then I'll make this point and I'll tell you why we're going back to Job 36. 37. I'm going to put that on the board so I don't forget it. So listen to this. Hast thou given the horse her strength? No. Hast thou clothed his neck with thunder? No. Mankind has not given the horse strength, nor clothed its neck with power. Canst thou make him afraid as a grasshopper? Yes, I can do that. The glory of his nostrils is terrible. He paweth in the valley and rejoiceth in his strength. He goeth to meet the armed men. He mocketh at fear and is not affrighted, neither turneth he back from the sword. The quiver rattleth against him, glittering the glittering spear and shield. He swalloweth the ground with fierceness and rage, neither believeth he that is the sound of the trumpet. He saith among the trumpets, Ha ha, and he smelleth the battle afar off, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. Okay, so then it goes to the hawk. Here's the thing. I can take a horse, and I can make that horse charge full chest, full bore into the den of battle. Or I can make that same horse be so afraid that if the wind blows the wrong direction, he'll run back to the barn frightened. I think what God is doing here is not so much talking to Job about what mankind is unable to do, but he's more talking to him about the expanse of the universe and the complexity of the universe, the mysteries. Job, there's things you don't know. And of course, one of those things he wouldn't know would be 37:6. Job personally has no control over the weather. All right. We can go all the way back. 37:1. And at this also my heart trembleth and is moved out of his place. Hear attentively the noise of his voice and the sound that goeth out of his mouth. He directeth it under the whole heaven, and the lightning unto the ends of the earth. After it a voice roareth, he thundereth with the voice of his excellency, and he will not stay them when his voice is heard. God thundereth marvelously with his voice. Great things doth he, which we cannot comprehend. Now, what can we not comprehend? Well, we can't comprehend the snow falling. We can't comprehend the small rain and the great rain, the rains that come in their seasons. He sealeth up the hand of every man, that all men may know his work. This is an interesting one to look at on the spot. He seals up the hand of every man, that all men whom he made may know it. See, even that is interesting. Young's literal translation. Maybe he marks every hand. He sealeth up the hand. I don't understand this reference. He causes everyone to stop working. There it is. I get it now. So it is true. God is talking about generally. There are things that you can't do. But he's talking like 5,000 years ago, potentially. There were things that Job couldn't do, that Job couldn't understand, but we can do and we can understand. Job couldn't affect the short rains or the, what is it? Well, hold on. Oh, this is why it looks funny. I'm in the wrong translation. Good grief. Yeah, the small rain and the great rain. I'll get it out in a minute. But anyway, so the idea is Job couldn't do any of that stuff, and Job didn't understand that stuff. And we're supposed to not understand some of it so we can marvel at the majesty of God. Psalm 19, the heavens show forth the glory of God, and the firmament show forth his handiwork. So much so that we should be without excuse. Now, science has studied God's wonderful creation and have figured out the nuts and bolts. We can do things today that people couldn't dream of. We can genetically modify human beings. I'm not saying we should, but we can. So when it comes to all this stuff, like, I don't think humans should mess with the weather, but they can. They absolutely can. And again, I don't think we should. But there's not a Bible verse that you can point to say that humans can't mess with the weather because that's God's area. Humans usurp God's authority a lot. And I mean a lot. Yeah, if anything happens weather-wise, God allows it to happen. Now, that's anything. Yeah, I mean, we are free agents of this earth. We are stewards of the earth. And if we want to drill down to the core and drop a nuclear bomb and detonate it, I guess that's what God will allow us to do that. I say that. I mean, he won't allow it if he don't want to. But the point is, if it happens, it's because God allowed it. We had someone who left the church, then got dementia. When she passed, the family got a couple of Baptist ministers to do the funeral and imply the person went to heaven. That's sad. And you got that right. On a long enough timeline, the government will confirm itself. The truth will out. Absolutely. When man messes in the area of God, he will show you who really is in charge. On a long enough timeline, that is true. It may be that God says, I'm going to let you go your own way until you're bowing before King Jesus on the day of judgment. Yes. Absolutely. I know when it's going to rain because when I see the the contrails or the chemtrails, anyway, it takes about 3 days. Yeah. And that's another thing. All of the traffic in the sky, all of the chemtrails. Now, that's another people. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. That's just water vapor. You're right. It is. It is just water vapor. But do you think that hydrogen and oxygen are the only things associated in that vapor? I mean, that's coming from the airplane. And there's a cloud in the sky where there wouldn't normally be a cloud. And so that changes things. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's truth. People said rain was coming at every launch, and not as a conspiracy, but proven fact. That's it. I remember temps of 105 in the 60s. We had to play outside just the same. My dad remembers 105 on his porch in the shade when he was a little boy. He's 87. Yes. So, hey, Alabama, I do know in the 80s, I don't know how old you are, but I know wait a second, 60s. Okay. In the 80s, I remember temperatures of around that much in Tennessee. Now, years later, 2006, 7, 8, somewhere thereabouts, I remember these summers that we were having where it got in the teens, the 1 teens. Because I remember having to go mend a fence in an emergency situation during the hottest part of the day. And it was so hot that I would go out there and I would do a bunch of stuff, and then I would run back to the shade, and my partner we were like tag teaming. We weren't working on it together. He was in the shade while I would do stuff, then I would go in the shade while he would do stuff. That's about the only way we can handle it. I don't care if that makes us sound like pansies or not. We're not used to that kind of weather. You got that right. IVF, in vitro fertilization, is messing with God's business. IVF means, in vitro means in the glass. The problem with IVF is the multiple babies that is produced that are either aborted or killed or never allowed to come to term, and they're called snow babies. Chemtrails. Okay, I wanted to make sure, because that's what I had said my whole life is chemtrails, and I am not above. Oh, okay. There are contrails. Well, that tells you how much I know. Now, our airplanes, to my understanding, airplanes put out both chemtrails and contrails. Is that right? Anyway, the contrails are just water vapor, which again, I still put forth to you. I know it's just water vapor, but is it just water vapor? You know what I mean? Anyway, but a chemtrail would be chemicals. I don't know. You'll never convince me that it doesn't have an effect. Now, is the effect bad enough for us to stop flying? I ain't never had anybody die because of the effect, so I'm going to say no. I'm sure that there would be people who listen to this who have been negatively affected that would say, we need to stop doing this because people are dying. Again, that's why we have public discourse. But yeah, I don't like accusing people of believing in conspiracy theories, because it's just too dismissive. Deal with what they're saying. Like if somebody comes and Marjorie Taylor Greene was accused of being a conspiracy theorist and a right-wing nut job because she said that you have these Jewish lasers from space. Anyway, it all turned out to be true. But what she said was taken out of pocket. It's like Alex Jones. Do y'all realize? Now look, I don't know what I believe about the terrible attacks on 9/11. I do know that my government is willing to lie. I do know that managing 2 children in a household, I don't even tell them everything. And that's only 2 people. The government's managing millions of people. You think they tell us everything? You think we know everything's going on? Let me tell you what I think happened. I think, a condensation trail. So it is nothing but water. Well, look at me. I don't like eating crow unless it's smoked. Anyway. So yeah, a contrail, if it's a condensation trail, that's nothing but water. So, but anyway, what was I saying? Oh, well, Alex Jones predicted the 9/11 attack quite a while before it happened. Alex Jones has been right on so many levels that it's a running joke in certain circles. Instead of having a swear jar that every time you say a bad word, you put $1 in it, they have an Alex Jones is right jar. And every time something comes out on the news that Alex Jones predicted decades ago, like, Alex Jones has been saying that for years. They're turning the frogs gay. You know what? Turns out they were. They were. They figured it out. Anyway. Oh, that's, yes. Yeah, and planes do both, chemtrail and contrail. Want to find out what's going on in your country? Go to another country and watch the news. Hey, Alabama, I've got one better. If you really want to know what's going on in your country, go to TikTok or go to some other app that uses videos from TikTok like Shorts, and go to your region locator and just look at videos coming out of that region. Do you remember whenever Trump said they're eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio? Well, that's just a conspiracy theory. He shouldn't say that. It's the truth. It's the truth. The Haitians were eating people's pets. They were eating the ducks and stuff out of the ponds on the parks. The insurance for Springfield, Ohio, the base insurance rate for their metric went up due to all the crashes in Springfield, Ohio. Everything that was said was 100% true, but because it wasn't delivered in a way, because it was said in a way that was exasperating and it was hyperbolic, like they're eating people's pets, they're eating people's dogs. No, not. They were eating people's cats, and they were taking these animals and offering them in their voodoo sacrifices and their religious voodoo rituals, and they were like their videos there. All of the stuff coming out of Springfield, Ohio, you've got those videos of people. They videoing the people taking the animals, eating the animals, butchering the animals. They're taking video of the town halls where the citizens are begging to get something done about these people. But yet the media says, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. They're not eating cats in Springfield, Ohio. Fact check false. That's gaslighting. That's gaslighting. Okay, hold on. Okay, I concede that man can and probably does affect the weather. I wonder why they can't destroy hurricanes and tornadoes. That would be great if they could. Well, that's the thing. They can. The problem is the amount of energy it would take to dissipate a storm of any size that would do mass damage would be worse than the storm that they dissipated. Theorists have even postulated that if you created a large enough explosion out in the sea to create a large enough shock wave and then create like a vacuum effect, that it could disrupt the hurricane. But the problem is the fallout from that would be worse than the hurricane. It's really, think about this, John. It's much easier to start an avalanche than it is to stop an avalanche. We possess technology good enough to stop an avalanche. I mean, we built Grand Coulee Dam. We built Hoover Dam. The technology is not much different for stopping an avalanche. It's just so impractical that it would never happen. But think about it, it's much easier. So if I could shoot a bomb with a bunch of ionized particles and this, that, and the other up into the atmosphere in certain weather conditions, I'm sure with certainty, with some amount of certainty, I could predict what kind of weather patterns would grow out from that. Now, what I would get, I don't know. I mean, I may get a tropical storm. I may get a hurricane. I may get a really bad wave. I may get a really bad, just all kinds of stuff. But anyway, yes, that's pretty cool to think about that we actually are in possession of the technology to stop a hurricane or a tornado, but the power to stop it would cause a worse aftermath than just letting it run its course. It's hard for people who don't think that way to understand that not everyone is like us. They don't care. They enjoy what they do. Talking about the cats, yes. And, oh yes, that's why the government wants to get rid of TikTok. We get news before they can spin it. Yes. And again, folks, between us chickens, stay off that evil app. and look, I know people are on, I say that with the same, like, stay off of Facebook as well. Here's the thing. It's definitely the devil's tool, social media. But so is the television. Now, does that mean that Christians need to get out of those spaces? No, we need to influence. So on one hand, I put my tongue in my cheek and say, put the devil's tool down. Quit messing around on social media. But on the other hand, Christian, mess around on social media. Influence your space as the best way you can. Social media, I believe, is an all-around net negative. But think about how much worse it would be if good Christian folks weren't on it trying to spread the truth of God's word. So that's about all I got to say about that. Folks, I did not realize exactly how many people we have watching. This has been one of our best attended shows. Let me tell you what I would love every one of you to do. Every one of you that are watching on Christianity Now streams, now come back when you do this, but back out of the live stream chat and go hit that thumbs up button as if it were just a regular video. I found out recently, if I can get everybody to do that, it really helps the live stream after the fact. It really helps the live stream after the fact. And if you share it to your social media platform, Facebook really, where are we at, guys? YouTube really puts it out there. The world needs the weather we get, just not the intensified version. It has a purpose in what it does. We just happen to be in the way and suffer the effects. That is true, but let me wrinkle your brain a little bit. Tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes and strong straight line winds, all of that, that was never, it's God's design because he designed it into the system, but it wasn't his plan. The reason we have erratic weather patterns today is because it's the reverberation from the epicenter of the initial trauma to our universe, to our world. I said universe. Took on a little too much territory. It's radiating out from the epicenter of the flood, the major trauma of our planet, radiating out across through time, and we're still having erratic weather patterns because of it. A byproduct of God's wrath is enough to drive us into our caves with our head between our legs, scared to death and scared of death. God is an awesome God. All right, folks. If you have questions or comments or observations, you can send me an email, www.christianityisnow@gmail.com. Let me tell you, I've enjoyed this conversation. I had planned on talking a little bit about Jesus claiming to be deity when he said, "I am the light of the world." Oh, I meant to bring my lamp down here for show and tell. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can do this. I got a birthday present, and it's got a little certificate of authenticity. It is a replica of the lamp. It's a replica of the little lamps that are used during the Feast of Tabernacles. Hold on a second. I want to add a screen. I want to share screen. Screen share. Right there. Now, can y'all see that? Is that not the coolest thing? That's a wick. It's soaked in, the lamp is full of olive oil. Let me go over here. The lamp is full of olive oil, and you just soak the wick. And I ordered a 65 foot length of wick. You just cut it to length, and you wrap it in the lamp, and you pour olive oil on it and let it soak, and you just light your lamp. It is so cool. Now, the significance of this is John chapter 8, Jesus jumped up and said, "I am the light of the world." During a ceremony in which all of the people gathered would have been having one of these little hand lamps lit, and that lit hand lamp represents the pillar of fire and the pillar of smoke that guided the children of Israel in the wilderness. Well, what was that pillar of fire and pillar of smoke? That was God. When Jesus jumped up and said, "I am the light of the world," they would have associated that with this lamp with God. They would have understood, if they were paying attention at all, Jesus said, "I am God." I'm really proud of my lamp. I love it. I don't know why, but anyway, I've been talking about that little lamp for a decade. I saw it whenever I was in the Memphis School of Preaching. Let me stop this screen share. Oh, how do I stop the screen share, guys? Do y'all know? Oh, okay. So anyway, yeah, that's I love the lamp. My son got it for me for my birthday, and my daughter got me a bunch of Kindle gift certificates. So now I love my Kindle. I had such a wonderful birthday. October 6, 1977. 47 years old. Anyway, Debbie Mangus, thank you for this special discussion. I appreciate you. And incidentally, come back every Friday. I don't care what we talk about. We'll talk about tiddlywinks. If y'all show up and y'all want to know about tiddlywinks, I'll Google tiddlywinks. We have a conversation. But if you have an idea for a show topic or a question, please send an email to www.christianityisnow@gmail.com. If you want to support us and you just want to send a one-time donation, www.nearchurches@gmail.com. It is. Thank you. Hey, Alabama. They were pretty cool gifts. I may have failed at every aspect of my life, but for some reason, I succeeded with my wife and children. That's about all I got to say about that. All right. Nearchurches@gmail.com. You can send us a monetary donation. And, don't forget about Twitter. We're live streaming on Twitter. I'm starting to do more on Twitter. We would love for you to follow us on Twitter, share our stuff on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, on X, which is 1 Chronicles 1232, my goal is for that. The only value that I can think to offer is I'm going to share. I'm going to retweet stuff. I'm going to quote tweet stuff. And it's stuff that I think that people who follow the Christianity Now brand might be interested in. So go follow me on Twitter, even if you don't tweet. And then don't forget about the 1,000 subscriber live stream. I'm going to put the link to that video in the comment section. There is a live stream. We're going to do this on the 19th. It's going to be in the evening on the 19th. That's a Saturday, like at 7 o'clock Central Time or 8 o'clock Central. I don't know which one yet, but it's going to be me and Aaron. I may try to see if we can get some guests. I had this great grand plan. I don't think it's going to work out. But what we'll do is on that live stream, all of the comments from YouTube, we will do a random number generator, and we'll pick one of the commenters that corresponds with that number. And, never mind. That would be terrible. Anyway, we'll do it that way. I've already got this written down. I don't need to change it. And you will be able to win a New King James, double column, verse by verse, goatskin premium Bible. Hey, Alabama, we're now Twitter friends or whatever you call it. I don't know the language. We're tweet buddies. We're just a couple of twits. Hey, Alabama. We're just a couple of twits. I think that tickled me way more than it should have. All right. But anyway, yeah, all that good stuff. Do the following, all that. If you want to support us monetarily, www.patreon.com/Christianity Now, or go to Substack, Christianity Now Substack. But you can win the Bible the 19th. Be sure and check out LeBeth's Mindful Soul, beamindfulsoul.substack.com. I should have all these queued up, but I don't. And then of course I want to share the latest article, Jesus, the Light of the World. I released that article this morning. I have not narrated it. I'm behind on my article narrations. I knew that was going to happen. I didn't manage my time wisely. So if you have a chance, go to Spotify or Apple Podcast and subscribe to Christianity Now Narrations. That's Christianity Now Narrations. And I narrate the articles that we release on a daily basis. I am greatly behind. Hopefully next week I will be back where I need to be. I'm still taking Monday off. There will be no live stream Mondays. But my plan is still dropping articles, still doing narration. And if I can order my time, my plan is to use Monday to record a short video, 10 minutes at the max, and upload that. We got to start cultivating those views. Oh, that's awesome. Your post yesterday about the vow was good. Thank you. Yeah. And that actually happened. That was in Memphis, Tennessee at a kidney doctor. And I told the receptionist, I can't sign that. She thought I was being very silly. And I'm like, ma'am, that's an open-ended vow. If I sign this, I am vowing to do anything the man says. It's not that I don't trust him, but I'm not going to give anybody that much power over me. Folks, y'all have been amazing. I've been mediocre. The content was good today, I think. God bless every one of you. It's time to end the show. This has been Tony Brewer with Christianity Now. I cannot express to you how tickled I am at the large turnout. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. This has been Tony Brewer with Cogitations. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and Podbean. Look up Cogitations, and we'll catch